Yeah.
Let's see what time it is. It's 7 o'clock. It's time to start. This is William DeMille. Welcome to Gardening with William DeMille, Thursday night Q&A, where I help you have the best garden of your entire life. In this episode, we will discuss the Georgic tradition, farming, gardening, livestock, soil health, education, and if we have fun doing it, there might be a law made because that's the world we live in. Education is the main thing that we need to deal with. The purpose of this is to increase your health from the ground up. Missions matter. We need to know what our mission is and what our purpose is. My purpose is to grow as much healthy food as I possibly can to help people in this world to have the best food in the whole that they've ever had in their life so that their cells in their body can respirate properly. Today is August 17th, 2023. If you have not yet got my book, get it because you'll never read a book from a guy quite like me. Now, tonight is week 63, and here we go. These are the 9 ways that I help you to grow the best food in the world. Number 1, I've got a YouTube channel, and then I do a weekly Q&A. That's what this is. Patreon, get on Patreon, $8 a month, $30 a month, $250 a month, whichever tier you get. It will be fantastic. And if you want to know how to get on there, go to my website at georgicrevolution.com. I'm a soil lab. I can look for all the little critters who are wiggling around in your soil, and that'll tell you whether you have good soil or bad soil. The next awesome thing that's happening here is our 17-week boot camp, which is our course that we teach all summer long, and we are coming to the end of our 2023 course. We only have about a month left, and so that makes us all sad and happy for our accomplishment, all in one beautiful emotion, tied up in one glorious little package with a bow on top. Day 3 boot camp, or 3-day boot camp, either way, it's all the same thing. But that's when you come to my garden, my farm, my greenhouse. I teach you everything I know in 3 days. And then I'm available for consulting if you want me to help you with your farm and ranch to make it fantastic. Get my book. It's ready to get. And if you want to get my newsletter, which I send out once in a while, then make sure that you get your email on georgicrevolution.com. We're going to do questions in 1 minute, but first of all, I want you to see that we had a boot camp on August 3rd, 4th, and 5th. It was fantastic just a couple of weeks ago, and it was good. People came, they enjoyed it, they gave me good reviews. It seems like they wanted to do it again, so that's what we're going to do. We will continue, but we don't have a date set for the next time, but it is coming soon, so watch our website so that you can know when that is. We are taking people for our 17-week course for September of 2024. And that information will be updated soon on our website, georgicrevolution.com. So watch the website, and we are taking people. We already have 1 person signed up. We have other people asking questions, which is pretty awesome. We're going to have 20 students next year, and we have been preparing gardens right now for you to come to that class. You will get a 15-foot by 50-foot garden. I will mentor you for 4 months in one of the harsh climates where it's very hard to grow a garden. So if you can learn to grow a garden here, you can grow it almost anywhere. If you're going to try to garden in Antarctica, find a different mentor. Okay, here we go. Here's our subject for tonight. Biodynamics is awesome. It's great. It's fantastic. It's glorious. People always say, what kind of a gardener are you? Do you do permaculture? Do you do biodynamics? Do you do this? Do you do that? Do you do no-dig? Do you do back to Eden? The answer is yes. I do all of those. They're all the same thing. Now, if you're one of those people, you're thinking they're not the same. Of course they're not the same. That's not what I said. What I said is they're all the same thing. You can sort out my psychoses later. But you have to have all of these things to have the very best. Let me explain that a little bit. Rudolf Steiner is the father of biodynamics. He's been gone from the earth for a while. He lived a long time ago. Lloyd Nelson and Brooke Levan are both alive. They are the breathing, walking, living authority on biodynamics today. There are other greats in the biodynamic world, but these are the two go-tos for what you need in biodynamics. When you come to my class, my 4-month class, you will be learning biodynamics on steroids. It will be fantastic. Why is Ray Archuleta's name up there? I'll tell you. Ray Archuleta is one of the top soil scientists in the world. He worked for the United States Department of Agriculture for his career, probably 30 years, whatever. I don't know how many years, but it was a while. And he took soil samples from all of the places around the world, like mostly United States, but I think he has pulled some from other places. Like I'm sure he's worked with some in Europe and Canada and Mexico. I'm not for sure exactly how many other countries, but he has pulled hundreds of soil samples in his lifetime, and he cataloged those to see where the good soils were, where the bad soils were, just to collect data. And when he went to Brooke and Lloyd's farm, I think it was actually the property that Brooke owns, but we could ask them if we need to be technical about this. But when he went to their farm, he pulled their sample, he took it back to his lab, he ran the test, and it broke his chart because it was off the charts how good the soil was. And so they came back and they took another test, and that one was even higher. So as they take tests, the soil is getting better and better over time. So we had to rebuild the chart and make it bigger. But they don't really talk about that. Ray and the other scientists, they don't really talk about the biodynamics because it is very hard to take biodynamic farming and put it into a prescriptive box of here's what farmers should do to get the best soils in the world. And there are reasons for that. And it takes hours to talk about this and to figure that out and to explain it. And that is not the scope of what we're doing tonight. The point of this tonight is that what the biodynamic people do have created the best soils. And we know that because Ray Archuleta, who is one of our top soil scientists, said that that's the best soil. And they know how to do the best soil tests. So we're going to leave it at that. And I love to tell people that because it's fantastic. So tonight we're going to talk about the 7 herbs that should be growing in everybody's yard. And these are the biodynamic herbs. This is the biodynamic gardening, the herbs, what they use to make their gardens awesome. And then there's 2 other things they use. They will find different types of stones, like they could be crystals, they could be any kind of stones, feldspars, whatever is on your property or in your area that you like. Things that speak to you spiritually, mentally, physically, they're pleasing artistically. And you would take those stones and you would, and we're calling those silicas here on the bottom. It's number 1 on the bottom where it says other preps. So a prep they're just preparations of how to make your soil and your farm thrive. So silica, you would take some kind of stone, you would crush it up into powder, and then you would use that in your compost to feed your plants. And so these would have a lot of trace elements in them to feed your plants. Now, do you need those? It depends what you mean by need. Here again, that's a 5-hour conversation. Number 2 would be cow manure. So cow manure is where the nitrogen component comes from in biodynamics. Now let's start with the herbs. Yarrow, chamomile, nettle, oak bark, dandelion, valerian, and horsetail. Now there's 2 different kinds of horsetail, and we're talking about equisetum. And one kind has and other people call it joint grass, but some of them have, they're just like a stem that grows straight up. And that's used mostly in human herbology for human health. The one we're talking about, the horsetail or equisetum, is the one that it's still jointed, but it has branches that come off of it, and they're a cute little plant. So there's just a little differentiation, but you can use either one of them, and they're both really good. But the horsetail helps to prevent fungal diseases in your plant. Valerian is fantastic, and that's where you get the phosphorus. Remember when you buy a bag of, like, let's say you bought a Miracle Grow or any other kind of commercial fertilizer, and it's going to have 3 numbers on it. It's going to have NPK. Well, that is the nitrogen, which is the cow manure. And then valerian would be phosphorus, yarrow would be potassium. And then your other elements that are in things like a well-rounded fertilizer, they often will also have calcium and iron. And so that comes from the chamomile and the nettle. Dandelions are awesome. We would compost those, mix those up, and spread that out as a fantastic thing to help increase the yields on your property. And then the oak bark, that helps to promote general healing. And then for every biodynamic person out there, there are different ways that they will use these preparations. The main thing is, if every gardener in the world was growing these herbs in their own gardens, the fact that they're growing near your other food helps your whole garden to grow. And then if you have an issue, they're on hand. They're right there. You can grab these. You could make a tea with these fresh, just like you'd make a tea for a human to drink. You make a tea, and then when it cools off, you spray it around your garden. You just scatter it around. You can just flip it with your fingers. You can spray it in a spray bottle. You can pour it out of a watering can. It doesn't really matter how you do it, as long as you feel like you're doing it the right way and your plants are getting what they need. And if you feel like you're abusing your plant the way you're doing it, then you're doing it wrong. If you feel like you're helping them, you probably are helping them. And that's one of the things that people think is strange about biodynamics, is because we're so ingrained in our brains about having our whole world be all about reductionist science and following an exact recipe that we forget the spirituality part of this. I mean, most mothers who have raised a family of children can tell you that they knew, but they can't tell you how they knew. They just say, I knew what was wrong with my child and what they needed. The doctor disagreed. And then finally, after 5 doctors or whatever, we found somebody who figured out how to treat my child, and they said that it was the thing that I knew was wrong with them, and nobody was listening to me. This is a story that we hear like all the time. It's very common to hear that type of a story, and it's a sad story to hear that people don't listen to the intuition of a parent for their child. And that's the relationship we need with our farming, with all of our livestock, with our plants, with our orchards, with our forests, with our grasslands. However we're interacting with nature, we need to be interacting with it the way we were taught in the Judeo-Christian tradition of Mother Eve taking care of the garden and Father Adam taking care of the garden. That is the role of the Georgic, is to take care of the garden. That's why God placed them in the Garden of Eden. And I'm not making that up. That just comes from ancient literature. You can read that in the OED. And if you don't know what the OED is, it's the Oxford English Dictionary, which has every word that has ever been used in English. And it's a pretty big volume, and everybody should have a set in their homes, and we should be reading it. So biodynamic farming, man, this is cool stuff. Yarrow, chamomile, nettle, oak bark, dandelion, valerian, horsetail. If you are growing nettles have poison in them like a wasp or a bee sting. And so when you touch them, they'll sting you. So be careful, don't put them where you're going to walk by them and sting your legs every day. If you're suffering from arthritis, it will help to alleviate that. Touch the plant, the back of your hand, where your knuckles are aching with arthritis. And those alkaloids, I think they're alkaloids. You can tell me if I'm wrong, but it's some kind of a poison, but they will hurt it will hurt a little bit, kind of stings, but it relieves the pain of the arthritis. So these are very wonderful, glorious plants. These plants have a very high intelligence, extremely high intelligence. These plants know when to grow and what to do to fix soils, fix diseases, and create fertility in your soils. And the soil tests of our top soil scientists from the United States Department of Agriculture, who, by the way, know what they're talking about, they have told us that this is how we create the best soils. But they only tell us because they say, here's what Ray actually said. This is almost a quote from Ray Archuleta. He said, I don't know what they're doing, but they call it biodynamics, and they explained what they do. I don't understand it, but if more people did it, we would have more fertile land. So we need to take this from the gardening level and the hobby acreage level to the thousands and millions of acre level, and we can. And that's what my 17-week class is all about, is how we take this and implement these things into our lives. I'm going to quit screaming, and we are going to open this up for questions. So right now I'm going to stop my share. So there we go. So I'm going to take questions right now. Ezekiel, Abigail, Helena, whoever wants to ask a question, unmute yourself, or you could put it in the chat box.
I have a question. Is there ever a bad time to inoculate your plants with microbes from your compost? And also a caveat to that as well, like, is there ever too many times? Like, can you do it too many times and it's bad?
We need more master's students and PhD students doing really good, solid science to answer that question. The fact is, we don't have that information. There's going to be tons of folklore people saying, oh, yeah, or oh, no. But is there solid science that is published to tell us that answer? No. And if there is, I haven't read it. So if you're listening to this recording or you know the answer, please tell me, because I want to learn. But I have a pretty strong opinion. I would say if you have a fantastic compost and it's the right color, which is dark, humate color, which is 70% chocolate bar color, not black, should never be black. And if it smells like nothing or a forest floor, then you have pretty good compost. The next step is pop some of that under a microscope and see if anybody's home. My teacher, Lane Ingham, said, just look under there. You don't have to do a 2 or 3 hour assessment. Just look under there for 30 seconds and see if anybody's home. Is fungus home? Knock on the door. Are protozoa home? Is bacteria home? Do you see good fungus? Do you see disease-causing fungus? Do you see good bacteria? Do you see disease-causing bacteria? Do you see good protozoa or anaerobic protozoa? Are you seeing beneficial nematodes or bad nematodes? Who's home? If you see the bad guys, do not put it on your plants. If you see the good guys, put it on once a month throughout the year. 12, 15, 200 times. The thing is, you can fix soil by doing it twice. I've done it. There's places in my greenhouse where I can go pull a soil sample, and I have been inoculating quite a bit, but I can just pull a soil sample and it looks fantastic. Everybody's home except the bad guys.
That's good. So if I look under a microscope and I see that my compost has some living organisms, but it's not as many as I would hope, should I inoculate double the amount as I would before so that there's
exactly yes, that is perfect.
Okay, cool. That makes a lot of sense. And can I put the compost inoculant on my plants, like just the leaves, or does it have to be on the roots, like in the ground?
Yeah, so normally an inoculant is made for the soil, but for sure, if you are not going to go through the process of making a proper tea, then don't worry about it. Yeah, you can get it on the plant leaves. That's not going to hurt it at all. In fact, it's probably beneficial. Here's what people do that's the big problem. They don't make good compost. They don't inoculate. That's the problem. My friend Josh Adams was on a webinar 3 weeks ago or 5 weeks ago. I can't remember. But he said, the elephant in the room is your microbes are dead. And I'm going to start quoting that because he's right. Okay, Ezekiel.
All right, I have a question. Trying to figure out how to turn my camera around so you can see it. Oh, here we go. So this was my, we'll call it experimental potato patch.
Okay.
Not everything got done exactly right, and that's okay. But I think that the making the straw into soil is going well. So this was 11 straw bales that I just put down. In some areas, it's about a foot thick. In other areas, it's about 6 inches. It's not less than 6 inches anywhere. So, and then I mixed in some forest topsoil, so lots of barky, pine needly, whatnot, into it. So I wanted to ask you your thoughts. So this right here is some of the stuff that's more developed.
Okay, Zeke, pause for a second. Smell that. Take a big whiff of that right now. Okay, what does it smell like? Describe the detail.
Worms. It smells like worms. You know how worms smell?
Hopefully that's not a smell. Is it a good smell? Is it a pleasant smell? Would you put that you'd put that on your kitchen table while you're eating dinner?
Yeah, that wouldn't be a problem.
Okay.
I mean, it smells like wet hay. And it smells like wet hay and vegetation.
So it doesn't smell stinky.
No, it smells very forest flory.
Okay, fantastic. That's good. That's what you want. So that would be kind of a fungal smell, a mushroom smell.
Yeah, very mushroomy. That's a good word for it.
Okay, good. Yeah, that's good. That means it's aerobic and everything's working for you. Okay, good. That's good. That's my thoughts.
Good.
How many potatoes did you get?
I'm not done yet. I think I might halfway fill up a 5-gallon bucket. So not as much as I wanted.
So they didn't grow very good. I think that was mostly the hot weather.
It's true. It's true. I have some other stuff that I planted later. I planted them as soon as our temperatures started dropping down, and they are doing much better.
Okay. All right. Okay. Sounds good. So here's the thing. This was your first year. It always gets better. Next year it'll be better. 5 years from now, that will be excellent. And it's so thick, you probably don't need to add any more detritus for a couple of years.
Yeah.
Now, are there earthworms in there? As you're digging around, do you see earthworms?
There are not as many as I'd like there to be. There's a ton of worms over in my other garden over there, because that's where I had my worm bin.
Okay,
There's not as many over here.
Go get a couple handfuls of earthworms. I want like 100 earthworms in your hands. Bring them over and just put them down under there so that they're eating that, because the worms will create a beautiful soil for you.
Okay.
Okay, fantastic. Okay, are there any other questions from anybody? Abigail, go ahead.
Okay, so I'm saving seeds in my garden right now, but I still have plants growing. And so I'm leaving them to dry out, but then I'm watering them again. So like they dry out, but then they get soaked. And I feel like that's kind of like a fermenting process, sort of like if you get wet and then dry and then wet and then dry. So how should I spot water my plants and not sprinkler it? Or how do I make sure that my seeds are still viable by the end of the year?
Okay, yeah, so seeds that are drying up in the garden, they need to do that. And you have planted a jungle garden the way I tell people to do it. So you just have everything everywhere. So that does become a problem when you need to water most things, but there's part of it that needs to dry out. So you're going to have to protect those. So can you put an umbrella over your plant to keep the sprinkler from hitting it? Can you build a hoop house over it? Can you Can you spot water so that you're not watering with the sprinkler? These are things to think about. Can you turn on a drip line so that everything's getting watered on the ground, but the water is not hitting where you're wanting your tall seeds to get wet? So these are the things that you need to be thinking about. And, you know, there's probably 20 other ideas that I didn't say, but those are some things that could certainly help you.
So are the seeds being damaged right now because I'm watering them, or will
There
they
is a possibility of that, yes.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
I have to figure something out.
All right, Zeke's still got his camera on, and he is digging worms out of his garden. So that's pretty awesome. That's cool. So when you find a worm, hold your hand up to your camera. Helena, did you have a question tonight? You certainly don't have to, but if you do, let's go.
Well, I was going to ask you if having those herbs and stuff just growing in your garden, will it provide those nutrition through the roots and when they die and they just lay there? Or do you have to take them and make a tea out of them and put it on your garden? Or will just their presence be enough?
I don't know the answer to that. Here's my belief system. My belief is, yes, if you have enough of them growing around, they're going to do that naturally. The reason I believe that is I've been looking at nature for a long time. And when you find a large diversity of fantastic medicinal herbs out there in nature, you don't have anything being eaten by pests. You have fantastic genetics happening. Plants out there in nature are bigger and stronger than the plants in our gardens. So my gut feeling is yes, but where are the master's students and the PhD students actually quantifying some of this stuff? We need more people going into the sciences. So I hope that answered you.
Okay. And so like stuff that we know where stuff is, like nettle or horsetail, maybe we don't want nettle growing in our yard. Could we go collect it, dry it, and then crush it into powder and then put it on our garden, and that will be good? And same with horsetail?
Yes, absolutely. And that is how you do it. You can go get that stuff. Just your native stands are fantastic that are out there in nature. So only take about 1/5 of what's there. So if you find a patch of nettle, you know, just take 1/5. Don't leave 1/5 there. Only take 1/5. So leave a lot there so it can continue to grow.
Okay, sounds awesome.
Okay, perfect. All right, Zeke, unmute yourself and tell us about that worm in your hand.
Well, I got quite a few worms following your instructions. This one was nice and big and had a good band on him. I probably got 100-ish.
Okay, give us a close-up of that pile. Let's see if we can see what species they are. Okay, I'm going to tell you the name of those species. Those are Okay, fantastic. Okay, go. Hey, if we can't have some fun, why are we doing this? All right. Obviously, I can't tell the species from this from a Zoom call.
Yeah. These are. I do have a question for you, because in this area right here, it is a little bit more stinky. Like this does smell a little bit less good.
Yeah, was it a really thick area?
Kind of, yeah. It was more moist than the other areas. It had a lot more moisture.
Okay, yeah, well, see, oxygen probably isn't penetrating as well. So you want to make sure you're getting oxygen in everywhere. That's why detritus shouldn't be more than about a foot thick. 4 to 6, 8 inches is good. If you get over a foot thick, oxygen has a hard time getting in there. But it'll be fine. Everything's going to be good. The worms are going to work through that. The aerobic beneficial organisms always outcompete the anaerobic disease-causing organisms. So that's a fun thing to remember. So don't worry if you have a little bit of a disease problem. Over time, everything will heal and self-regulate. Okay, this has been fun. I'm going to go ahead and shut this down for the night. You guys have a fantastic week. We will be back same time, same place next week.
Thanks, William.
You are welcome.
See you later, Pa.
Bye-bye. Love you guys.